What is up, everyone, and welcome to Whale Project Showcase. Today, we're featuring the Battle for Draconis, a vibrant, lore-driven IP born from the acid trenches of meme coin chaos and years of reptilian overlord worship. What began as a cult joke has evolved into a hand-drawn saga of wizards, cults, warring factions, professionally produced comics, and animation. And joining us today is Crucifor's bumbling assistant, placating us feeble humans to learn how we can enlist. So let's dive in. Do I reference you as Crucifor since you are kind of the vessel here?
Hail Draconis, my fellow feeble humans. You can call me Crucifor, but please, I just want to acknowledge I am acting on Crucifor's behalf, as I always do. He is far too important to lower himself to speak with the likes of us. But I am here as Crucifor, so if you call me Crucifor, that's totally fine.
Understood. Appreciate the clarification. Definitely a little depreciation in how he does reference you. So maybe we can treat you a little bit more kind on this show.
Oh, that'd
For
be
the
wonderful.
for the uninitiated humans out here, can you help us? What exactly is the battle for Draconis?
Okay, well, I'll jump straight into it because that is the main event. Ripping through.
Or Draconis in general. Like I think I know there's a lot of people that have seen the artwork. We've seen Crucifor. We've seen some people, at least I have on my timeline through the years with the artists that I follow in this space, pay homage to reptiles. Like I see like wizards and reptiles with between weaponry and staves and fires. Like there's some kind of tribalistic thing going on. What exactly is this? Because it seems like a very inside cultural phenomenon that not everyone's familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I might maybe the best way into that because there's a lot to unpack with what is Alpha Draconis, what is Hail Draconis, and what is the Battle for Draconis. I might give you a little bit of history of the Grand Reptilian Council. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I'm gonna turn back the time to 2020, and the four members of the Grand Reptilian Council, Lord Corplor, Lord Crucifor, Cryptor, the sniveling master of coin, and Dildor slithered onto crypto Twitter, and there he is. You don't want to get too close to Dildor. Just a little
Oh,
word of advice.
okay.
So they slithered onto crypto Twitter and they were spreading the word of the one true coin, which was reptilian coin. So reptilian coin was launched on Ethereum. It served the sole purpose of protecting humans from becoming blood sacrifice when the reptilians eventually took over the world. So holders of reptilian coin were marked safe from becoming blood sacrifice, um, which was great. They're benevolent reptilian overlords, if nothing else, aside from the rigorous probings that they administer. So reptilian coin was a thing, but then around that time, we saw that NFTs were becoming more and more popular. It seems that crypto Twitter was really swinging into NFTs as a thing. So this is late 2020. Um,
Okay.
and my role as Crucifor's assistant, it was partially put in place because of my kind of background in the creative industries. So seeing NFTs being a thing, really, it was something that I suggested to the Grand Reptilian Council that we should be pursuing as a very powerful propaganda tool, essentially, for the Grand Reptilian Council. So my reptilian overlords were very kind to take me up on that. We created a few. Well, the very first set that we created was the Unholy Reptilian Tarot, which was a very limited NFT drop for holders of the One True Coin. Then we released our larger scale mint for holders, which was the Sigil of the Probinator. The Sigil of the Probinator is essentially our legacy NFT. So anything from that point on, which was released under the Blood Moon back in 2021. So we've got a real Blood Moon theme going on as you'll learn about later. But that was released under the blood moon for holders of a certain amount of reptilian coin, and that being the legacy token, everything that we've done since then, we've tried to give back to those holders. So that's like free mints for comics and airdrops, art airdrops, all that sort of stuff. So, and when we get to the Battle for Draconis mint, those holders will get free access to that as well. So that was our first big, large scale NFT mint. We then got into we did a lot of collabs with other projects from the time. There was ETHMen. I don't know if you came across ETHMen back in the day. Do you have a
I
figure?
did.
Do you have a figure?
I do not one that was made of me. That would be fire, by the way. Ethmen, if you're familiar with X figures, actually reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah.
Nuclear Samurai, who did Friends and Legends, kind of, I guess, carry that torch forward. But I loved that Ethan back then. In fact, that's how I initially had contact with Zach, who I understand is part of you guys' creative process, and we'll talk about that later. But reached out to Etman and said, "Hey, what you guys do is fire. I'd love to talk to you." And they were like, "Yeah, we don't really talk to people, but you could talk to Zach." So that's
Okay.
how that came about. But Ethman is definitely an OG gem. If people are not familiar, check out Ethman.
Yeah, fantastic. Also too, I'll just say up front, I say ETH. I don't know if that's an Australian thing, so forgive me if I sound like a bumbling human, which I am. But I'm going to stick with that. But yeah, the ETHMan collab we did, so they created figures of the Grand Reptilian Council. So if you do Hail Draconis in there, they should pop up. But looking now that I'm talking about it, that design for the ETHMan collab was based on our animation characters. That's our version of Lord Zeeg, which was a special. I think you needed to get all 4 of the council in order to get the Lord Zeeg version. So this version of Lord Zeeg was designed by our character concept designer back in the day. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. So after the Sigil of the Probinator, we released a comic book with ETHMan, and they did the action figures of the council. So while the comic was happening, we partnered up with a production company down in Melbourne, Australia, called Truce, and started developing an animation based on the Grand Reptilian Council. So what you're looking at now, is our first proof of concept animation, which is all about the one true coin. And from there, we've released 2 more comic books. We eventually sunsetted the one true coin because we'd saved enough humans, and for tax reasons, which is a very boring reason, but the coin is no longer a thing. We initiated a buyback. So holders above a certain threshold of reptilian coin were all given essentially a share of the pool, so we could wash our hands of that. But now we're moving forward with the Battle for Draconis, which is the large-scale extension of all of the mythology that we've kind of touched on over the last 5 years, and putting it into a PFP form drawn by the very excellent Zach, who you mentioned.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. So let me go back to the meme coin. Essentially, it was a bribe to save yourself when the reptilian overlords came here. If I understand that correctly, like if you had enough,
That
then
is
you would
exactly
be
right.
spared. Which is interesting because really the lever there is people wanting to participate and role play. Not insinuating that it's not real. I'm just saying they wanted
Yeah,
to be part of what was happening. So definitely a different impetus than a lot of tokens were having at the time. And so a lot of times I like talking with artists that leverage the tech in a unique ways where the contract or the token or the interaction is an extension of the art. And really here, it's kind of holistic where it was almost, it was a vehicle, but it clearly by everything that's lived on far beyond where the token has lived. It was just an aspect of it, and it sounds like an aspect of the creative process. Whereas, people launch meme
yeah,
coins now for clearly different reasons.
yeah, absolutely. And that's spot on. So the reptilian coin is part of the storytelling. It's a storytelling tool. Initially, when it was first launched, so that was around the time of everyone was in lockdown, and I think that's kind of why the NFT boom happened, which I think is a pretty, that's not a hot take. It's like everyone was locked up and just wanting to have fun online, so NFTs became a thing, and that's certainly why why we got involved with helping the reptilians launch their coin, because it was just a fun thing to do. But very, very quickly, the interacting with the holders was what sort of gave it life. So when we had the Telegram chat, for example, the reptilians were in there constantly. There were never any humans from the team in Telegram. The holders were always interacting directly with these reptilian overlords, which was a lot of fun. And from there, the storytelling sort of turned into, backstory and an expanded kind of mythology around who the Grand Reptilian Council are, and more importantly, for where we're at now, what Alpha Draconis is, which is the home world where they came from. So yeah, the token itself was probably not initially like, it all happened very organically, but that wasn't the reason the coin was launched. But it very quickly turned into a piece of this larger kind of role playing, like you said, world building, interactive, almost like an ARG kind of thing that we got right into.
Yeah, so you talked about it being organics. The meme coin launches, the meme coin does whatever it's going to do, but you guys clearly expanded far beyond that with collaborations, with the animation, which the quality was amazing, by the way. And I'd encourage anyone tuning in to check out the actual go on YouTube, check it out. Even the voice acting is super dope. Or they're genuine reptiles. I'm not doubting the existence here.
No,
I'm
and
just, I just
yeah,
have to
let's be
be
clear about that.
as a journalist, I just have to represent on both sides. That's all.
I understand. I respect that. I respect your position there.
Uh,
And
so
I will say it's very easy to use terms like role playing and storytelling and all that sort of stuff. At the end of the day, the Grand Reptilian Council exists. This is a propaganda project to spread their nefarious influence across the world. We just got to. That's the underlying base of our conversation. Just to acknowledge that going forward.
yeah, and I appreciate the candor with which they will disseminate propaganda. It literally will say propaganda, and it'll say like reptiles are your friends and do not want to eat you. So at least they're upfront. It messes with my brain a little bit, but I appreciate that.
That's
My
the idea.
my question for you was, so the token's doing whatever it's going to do. What really inspired you to keep going and continue working on behalf of the reptilian overlords after the meme coin launch, instead of it being kind of a one-off attempt?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, so my human life outside of working for Lord Crucifor is in the creative industry. And so seeing what NFTs were and the sort of communities that grew around them and the type of people that were creating stuff was really creatively inspiring for me personally. So it very quickly became a creative outlet where I do creative work professionally, but it's working for other people. This is something where we're creating something from scratch. So to be honest, the coin itself, like we didn't go into it wanting to launch a meme coin and make heaps of money and rug it and disappear or anything like that. We did it for fun, and then that fun grew into having more fun with the characters and more fun with collaborating with artists and other projects. So after the coin itself launched, that was kind of secondary to our motivations, I guess. Like, the coin did its own thing. We managed to, if we're looking purely at charts, if we're looking at the charts of a coin, where most meme coins around that time, they launch, they get pumped on the launch, then they crash, and then people move on to the next one. and that's where generally projects get abandoned. We did that. That we absolutely had the same pattern. Like when the coin launched, it was a frantic hour of the Telegram just going berserk with all these degens, and then it crashed, and then everyone said, "Oh, thanks very much, thanks for playing. Your coin's dead," and moved on. But for us, it wasn't, because we had these stories to tell. So I've got myself sidetracked. I don't know how I got to that point. What were
I
we talking
think
about? Oh yeah, why we kept going. That's right. So
yeah.
okay, sorry. So the coin did its thing, but we had a storyline in place already about the Great Revelation. So the coin was launched, I believe, in September, and that year the US election. We're all Australians, but the US election obviously is great fodder for this sort of material. As you know, you're from Boston, I believe. So we had the Great Revelation tied up to the next election. So that was a storyline that played out. And the Great Revelation turned out to be not what the reptilians originally planned, but it was the rather than the ascension of a reptilian overlord to the presidency, it turned out to be that we were launching an animation. So that was kind of maybe not as impressive for the people following along. Reptilian uprising versus animation, but that's where we're at. So yeah, the coin itself, like we had a great time with it, and it was an awesome experience, but it was more like a building block to get to where we are. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking through the comics right now, and you mentioned that you have connections in what you do day to day, as far as creative agencies or whatever way that you're tied in. But the quality is like super high on both the comics and the animation. Did you tap like some professional studios, or you just the artists that you run with as well are just super talented?
Yeah, no, we definitely tapped professionals. So the comic came first. So this is what we're looking at now as issue 2. We had the same comic writer for all 3 issues, a guy called Eric Palicki, who's a freelance comic writer, like a published writer. So I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly how I came across him. It was kind of just doing a bit of a call out through channels, and in other accounts, my personal account, call outs in the comic industry to find freelancers that are looking for work. So we teamed up with him, and he was awesome. He really, really gets the vibe, the humor of the project. Then issue 1, oh, I forgot about that little Tom Crucifor there. That's cool. Issue 1, we worked with an artist called Gavin Smith, who he's gone on to do a lot of he works on a lot of comics by the company called IDW. I don't know if you're across comics,
Yep.
but yeah, so he does like Godzilla and Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. But again, it was the same thing. It was just finding freelancers, going through portfolios and stuff, and making sure they had the right vibe. And then the second 2 issues was a different artist called George, who is also got a very cool style. But yeah, absolutely trying to, like, if we were going to make a comic, we wanted to make a legit comic, like professional letterer, professional colorist, do it properly. Same with the animation. So the voice actors that you mentioned, like, we weren't allowed to name them at the time, because it was kind of all, they worked on it, outside of their agent kind of scope. So I
Okay.
haven't really publicly
As
named them,
as
but
reptilians do.
as they do, exactly. But like, if you're familiar with some old like Cartoon Network stuff, you would definitely have heard these voices before, or even Marvel animation, you would recognize some of these voices. So yeah, always, like, when we do anything creatively, we want it to be the best quality it can be. And that, we've done art collabs, and that's been, again, just getting to know artists in the space, and developing good relationships with artists that I personally am fans of. Which, that's the collaborative nature of Web3 that is absolutely its best aspect, in my opinion. But yeah, when we did things like animation, comic books, the PFP collection, it's working with the best people we can. It's not. It's I will say, like, it's 2025. We started this in 2020, and we're only now doing a PFP collection. We obviously don't care about rushing stuff.
Right.
Or just putting something out for the sake of it. It's all about doing it properly.
Well, I mean, first of all, to have that kind of staying power and longevity, because a lot of people like really, from what I gather, it seems like a lot of people either really enjoy engaging and through this process and continue to do so, or they're really fearful of the reptilian overlords that come. But either way, it's impressive to see that continued engagement. So there's three comics, and I know we're gonna get to the PFP myth, but I just want to make sure I understand from like at least where we're at right now heading into this battles perspective. Do the comics in synopsis, because there's probably a lot covered, have
Yep.
any story that I need to know? Like, what's the main beat of
Sure.
what happened in it to where we're at right now?
That's a great question, because it does. It actually, the comic bridges the animation and the first appearance of the Grand Reptilian Council here on Earth with what's going on with the PFP mint. So very, very good question. You've done this before, I can tell. So when the project began, as I mentioned, the reptilians were already here on Earth. They've released their coin. They're looking after the humans. The comic book goes back in time a little bit, and it's their journey from their homeworlds to Earth. So in issue 1, we discovered that Lord Corplor's dad is this figure called General Warlord. That's him right there with the big red cloak. So General Warlord is the militaristic ruler of the reptilian homeworld. He's the king. He's the big guy. Lord Corplor, I'm going to speak freely here because I know Lord Corplor doesn't listen to this sort of stuff. He won't be watching this stream, but just between us, he's a bit of a buffoon. Like he's just a big dumb lug.
Yeah, he's a brute. He's a brute.
He's a brute. He's a brute. He's a brute. It's putting it very kindly. So in the comic, in issue 1 of the comic, we learn that General Warlord sends Lord Corplor to Earth. He tells Lord Corplor that it's a very important mission, that Earth's very important in the scheme of Alfred Draconis and the plans they have for the universe. But in reality, he's sending Corplor and the Grand Reptilian Council to Earth just to get rid of them. Like, he sees Earth as an insignificant pile of filth, and he's just sending Corplor to get him out of his hair, basically. So that's the overriding storyline. That's where issue 1 leaves off. At the end of issue 1, the reptilians are flying off in their very suspiciously shaped rocket ship,
Right.
and they get intercepted by Lord Zeeg from Eggman. Then when we get to issue 2, we discover that Lord Zeeg is actually on a ship full of Skull X skulls from the collection Skull X. So that was our little crossover with that fantastic project, which, again, we've maintained good relationships with Nox from Skull X. And they've got an Ordinals collection out, and they've got a new art drop with, I think they've got 50 artists. I'm just going to give them a little plug while we're in this section. Zach's done a piece for them as well, so that's something to look out for. But anyway, so the reptilians get sucked on board. That sounds really wrong. They get teleported on board Zeeg's ship, and they have to basically confront these vicious Skull X skulls. Through their usual tomfoolery, they manage to escape, and they land on this planet. The ship looks a bit limp there, and then they're confronted by a wizard from the Forgotten Runes wizard cult, which leads us into issue 3, and that's when they encounter some wizards. So yeah, essentially the comic was framed as, like, everything we've done is designed so that if one thing took off, it wouldn't impact the development of another thing. So when the comics were being made, the animation was like in full swing, developmental swing. So that very clearly took place on Earth with the Council. So I wanted the comic book series to be, outside of that, still the same characters, the connecting storylines, but the comic could be a journey through space where we can collab with different projects. You know, they can land on different planets. They can go into different dimensions. We can have all these crossovers that wouldn't affect any main storyline that might have been developed for the animation. And that's the same with the storyline of the PFPs.
So what it's definitely has a kind of I want to say unified style. There's definitely thematically, both from an art style, and it sounds like some of the projects and artists you collaborated with, as well as kind of the tone. There's a consistency here. How would you describe the storytelling style or the tone of the media that's being put out, the propaganda here? And what
Yeah,
are and if there are influences for it, what would some of those be?
yeah, definitely. So the main tone is ridiculous comedy. It's definitely got a humor that's probably grown out of watching The Simpsons. Things like, you know, The Simpsons. I can't really name any good references. That's the driving one, but it's just like a culmination of just consuming too much media personally growing up. So it's definitely definitely ridiculous humor. Um, the art style, varies depending on the project and who we're working with. But we have a kind of, you know, overarching motif, which is the red and black, the Eye of Draconis. Um, yeah, everything's unified by our kind of overarching branding, but the art itself will take on the form of the medium that it's in. So the comics were obviously more superhero-y kind of style. The animation is a lot more cartoony. The PFPs, Zach, you know, we chose to work with Zach for a reason, because he's just a really talented, you know, incredible artist with an amazing attention to detail. And in doing that, like we lent into Zach's style, which is very detailed, really highly detailed artwork, lots of neon colors, and you know he's got a very distinct look, which we kind of just took in to the project, which has been interesting for me personally. So, you know, we've got these ridiculous traits, which is the little Lord Corporal action figure, the weird slime guy, with in Zach's very detailed illustrative style, which is very different from the animation style. But the humor and the, you know, the I guess the branding of the project is what unifies it all.
Yeah, super dope. I think I've seen through the years and seeing what you guys have been doing with your propaganda and who's been engaging. Artists that I know a lot of us within our community are very familiar with. Griff, of course, Zach, a lot of people that are consistent in that illustrative style. I guess that kind of lends well to what you're trying to accomplish on pushing the propaganda for the reptilian overlords. But thank you for sharing more from the storytelling perspective. I know you've had a lot of collaborations, and these are super dope. So I'd love to hop in and understand a little bit about the upcoming launch. So Battle for Draconis. Uh, Talk me through from what is happening perspective. Are there the reptilian are landing on Earth? My understanding is there's factions. There's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on. So if we look back at the, oh sorry, I got some interference from David Ick. So if we go back to the comics, that we saw the reptilians be sent away from Earth by General Warlord. While the Grand Reptilian Council have been doing their thing on Earth, which has been very ineffectively trying to take over the planet, something's happened back on the home world. We're not exactly sure what it is, but General Warlord is missing. So we don't know what happened to him. But now that he's gone, it turns out he was pretty much the one thing keeping order on this inherently chaotic planet. So now that he's left the throne, we're seeing all of the 6 main factions of reptilians basically just running amok. They're vying for control of the planet. So it's an all-out reptilian civil war. In order to try and maintain some of this order, get some of the order back, and find out what happened to Warlord, the Grand Reptilian Council they're actually transferring the consciousness of any human who mints this project. They're transferring their consciousness into a reptilian host back on the homeworld. So they're hoping that this army of human-controlled reptilian infiltrators will help them get control of the planet, but they're not 100% sure that they will actually have any control over the humans once they arrive there. So that's a bit of an overview on why they're doing this collection and why it's all happening.
So it's essentially recruitment
It's
for the war
recruitment.
because of the power vacuum that has happened. And
Exactly.
I'm checking out, Zach's influence is pretty heavy here. Do you have other guest artists as well that have contributed to the PFP mint?
Yeah, we sure do. So Zach's done all of the key art. So he's designed every reptilian, every trait that you'll see in the collection, which there's an absolute ton of. We made a very, very conscious choice of just creating more assets, the better, because there's nothing worse than a collection. It's the same guy with one guy's wearing a
Right.
bowler hat and one guy's got a dummy for some reason.
Yeah.
So
Same
we want
exact thing with a freckle.
exactly. If we want
Yeah.
the reptilians to feel fairly unique, which is why we've got the 6 factions. So we've got I know you asked about artists. Sorry, I'm sidetracking myself here.
That's okay. Factions, yeah, factions as well.
Yeah, so the factions, there's the warriors, the barbarians, the occultists, the bureaucrats, and the citizens, and the assassins. Did I say assassins? I'm counting. I've lost track. So there's 6 factions. Across those factions, there's 5,555 reptilians across those 6 factions. As I said, Zach's designed all of them. Every faction has unique heads, so unique variations on heads, plus unique suits, masks, helmets, war paint, everything you can think of. And then the guest artists that we have 20 guest artists, and to make sure that we had full cohesion throughout the collection, we've asked these guest artists to provide background traits. So you'll see here, that's a wax bones background.
I knew that looking at it because
Yeah,
just this is
if you know
distinct
wax
style,
bones,
right?
you can pick that straight away.
Right.
But the idea was that we wanted to have all of these amazing artists that we know and love, but we still wanted every reptilian to feel like it's part of the same set, rather than have a guest artist do their own take on a reptilian. So you would have, very different looking characters mixed in amongst the 5,555. We wanted these artists to bring their own style to the background. So every background trait, has a variety of color throughout the collection. And then these guest artists, amongst those different colors, they've got their own unique, piece. So that was a way we thought would be interesting to bring in guest artists without changing the actual aesthetics of the project.
That's super dope. I just saw Everfresh as well, so a lot of interesting background and collaboration. I guess that we're going to see there. Any Easter eggs from the artists as well, or just backgrounds?
No, just backgrounds. But I will say my goal with the collection going forward beyond the mint, providing that the ritual is successful and the Grand Reptilian Council managed to transfer enough humans. One big part of the project going forward will be to engage all of the guest artists that have contributed backgrounds to create future pieces, and how that's distributed. I've got some ideas up my sleeve, so I don't want to share too much. I don't want to lock anything in because it's all pending how the mint goes and the life of the project. But ultimately there will be a battle that we want to play out with the holders and the collection, and perhaps that these pieces that we engage the guest artists to do will be spoils of war in some way. So that's kind of
Yeah.
where my head's at with it all.
So that's one of the questions I had for you. I seen this alluded to that because I feel like this has been a long cook for you guys, and you've been working on different permutations of it over time. And I thought I had seen alluded to something of I don't want to misspeak, but something like soft staking or some way to
Yeah.
what you have aligned for your faction. If there's a war to be played and maybe one faction takes a lead over the other, or whether it's relative to the spoils of war, perhaps that's what you're talking about right there, or more.
No, I think you. I don't know where you saw that. Well done. But yes, that's the idea. So again, I just want to preface this with this is all dependent on how the ritual of the warp goes and how many people we get on board. But the next step post mint will be building out the battle, which will be soft staking. If you remember 10K TF Battletown, I don't know if you ever took part in that.
I did not.
So that was kind of like I kind of designed the battle for Draconis, which will be I don't know how much I should be talking about it because I don't want to lay it all out now and then no one decides to mint and we have 3 holders that are waiting for this fully built battle.
Listen. I understand you have overlords that you have to answer to, so I appreciate what you've alluded to, and don't worry about where
I can give you some more. I can give some more. I just don't want to I just want to make sure that's
yes,
clear.
we're the caveat here that things could change. It depends on how many people enlist for the war. Things could take a turn for the worse here, but there are definitely plans. And just before you jump into that, don't worry about where I get my alpha. That's what I do. But it should be up your will, Alpha Draconis. So it's
well, that's one of our sayings. If you want free alpha, it's free Alpha Draconis. So the battle in its current form, right, in its current planning stage, the battle makes use of the factions. It makes use of the scrambling for territory across Alpha Draconis. It would make use of claiming territory through these battle staking mechanics, winning not just land. And I don't want to give any impression that we're building any sort of game, any sort of there's no 3D. You're not getting land. We're not going to give out land parcels, but the battle itself is to claim territory. So factions will be vying for territory. If everything goes according to plan, which we're hoping it will, those territories will have their own unique resources and their own unique spoils of war. And so this is like a long-term ongoing event that is planned out. Again, pending everything going according to plan. But yeah, we want the battle. The thing is called the battle for Draconis. So the battle is definitely. Oh, my son's coming in. Let me give me 1 sec.
I'm not sure if this is a reptile son or if I'm talking to a human right now, quite honestly, but I'm kind of nervous to ask. So.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I don't know if you're dealing with a reptile son or a human son.
So it's a spawn.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very unruly.
Okay.
And unpredictable. But I was saying, yes, the battle for Draconis is a battle. It's a battle.
I appreciate the vision beyond it. It sounds almost akin to like a tabletop game, where you'd take some positions and have some risk, and there's some reward involved as well. So that kind of thing excites me because I like further gamification in these kinds of projects, because there are some things that you engage with just because they're genuinely fun and you think they're cool. So that combined with the fire artist that you have, and obviously nearly 6 years deep into lore, and just kind of the history of what's been going on with the council and back on Draconis as well, just gives us a lot of depth that I think on the surface you kind of have to spend a moment to understand the scope of what's going on here, or you just catch the right propaganda and people are indoctrinated either way.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
The propaganda will find you eventually.
So tell me about the mint. It's on the upcoming blood moon. Is that what I've read here?
It is. So I mentioned before that our first large mint was the sigil of the probinator, and that was the blood moon of 2021.
Okay.
It just so happens that a blood moon is occurring on the night. It's actually the early hours of the 8th of September down here in Australia. So the 7th of September up in the Northern Hemisphere. The exact time that the ritual of the warp will begin is to be determined, but it will be during the blood moon, if not a little bit before, a little bit after. But the blood moon is the trigger. So that's less than a week away. So we are very close. It will be happening on ETH mainnet. So you might find some materials if you look back further in our feed, our propaganda feed that features logos for other chains. You can ignore those. They need to be scrubbed from public record. But again, it just shows you the amount of time that this journey's taken. But we've ultimately landed back on our native legacy chain, which is Ethereum mainnet. It's where we began, and it's where we feel most at home. And I think people want to have fun with an ETH mint again. Price, I can tell you the price. We haven't announced the price, but I think this is a good place to do it. You will be able to have your brain transferred into one of these glorious reptilian beasts for the low cost of 0.01 ETH. So we are setting the mint price quite low because we want people to come on board. We want to get this story underway, and I think that having a very low barrier of entry is the best way to do that. It's not a free mint. I think a free mint, there's a number of reasons why it's not a free mint, but one, like I think without being able to enforce royalties, unfortunately, if you have a vision for growing the project and building post mint, you kind of are relying on mint funds to build that, right? And a free mint without royalties is too much of a risk. Two, I think it does do the art a disservice. Like I feel, to be honest, I feel a little bit gross that it is such a low price already, because Zach's art and the guest artist's art deserves a lot more. But there are 5,555 of these things, and so we want as many people to join us as humanly possible. So a very low mint price, ETH mainnet, and happening this Sunday/Monday.
That's super dope. I love that it's accessible. I know one of the questions that we'd frequently get from our community, something like this, especially with gamification of factions and a possible war that's going on. And I know you said things can change, so not trying to peg you down on something, but what would happen in an instance where there's a lot of hesitancy and nervous humans, and so your enlistment is not quite where you had targeted, right? You only get 2,000 humans to enlist. Are there kind of plans for what that would mean for the war and how tactical it would be approached?
Yeah, I think that what I will say for that is we're adaptable reptilians, if nothing else. We've kept this project alive for 5 years with basically no funds coming in. So the level of success of the mint will probably impact the level of execution, but it won't impact longevity, if that makes sense. So we might not be able to fully build out the battle as grandly as we plan, but having a smaller mint will just mean we'll probably refocus that energy into maybe either a stripped back iteration of the battle itself, or we'll look at other ways to get the battle story through, story told through other mediums. It's going to be, it's going to be us adapting. We're certainly not, we don't have any plans to, like, at this stage to say, we don't have a cutoff date. We don't have plans to, no one's minting, just make it a free mint and be done with it. We are going to build. We're going to build regardless of how many people mint. It's just the amount of people that mint will determine what we can build and how big we can.
And I say this, and the context here being, I've seen you on my timeline spreading propaganda for quite some time, but this is actually the first time that we've talked, which is interesting. I've just been I've been hypnotized, I guess, and just following along without saying a word. I don't know what that says to me and my susceptibility for the reptilian overlords. But that being said, what I have seen, besides you guys perpetually doing new stuff and cool stuff with your engagement, is even something when it comes down to the level of the token itself that you had launched 5 years ago. Not long. I mean, it seems not long ago to me, but who knows? I've been in the Web3 trenches for too long. It seemed not long ago that you were engaging with your broader community, people that had that, and basically said, hey, there's a buyback. If you have that, like, here's something for you. We want to take all of the supply back that we can and just get it off the market. So, like, clearly there's a level of responsibility and continued ownership and just desire to perpetually move the project forward in whatever iteration that is. So I know sometimes people see mint numbers and they think in different quantifiable metrics on what that could mean or whatever. Bottom line here is the battle's happening. So you either enlist and you're part of it as a participant, or you're sidelined and you're watching what is going to happen to Earth. So I just wanted to share that context.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's as I mentioned, it's not. I think there's a lot of projects that are launched as the be all and end all of that particular team or founder's plans, right? So they have everything riding on a mint or a collection, and if it doesn't do well, they move on. Hail Draconis it's its own thing. It's a living entity almost by this stage. So look, if 0 people decided to join the battle, Hail Draconis will still be here, still creating, still working with all of the amazing artists that we can work with, still producing stuff. It's just how, as I said, it's just how big we can go. And we want to go as big as possible. And we want everyone to come along with us to make that happen. So yeah, it's all about scale for us. It's not about, if the mint doesn't succeed, then it's the end of Hail Draconis. We're always going to be here. You can't get rid of reptilian overlords.
Right. And evidently they're everywhere, right? I think I popped into your Discord to get a little bit of information relative to the project as well, and some different spaces. And I see them talking themselves, right? Not you on their behalf either. So they're active as well, and a lot of interplay between the reptilian overlords and the community that you have. They even have what I think are some kind of AI assistant bots as well, and they're helping them. Like, it's always ongoing.
Yeah, that's actually it's not AI. I know how you could see that, but it is.
Oh, okay.
It's actually it's one of the masters of the warp, who they speak they've got their own way of speaking. So I can forgive you for thinking that was a bot.
You know what? We have the same issue here. One of our team members, Zorro, is often mistaken for an AI as well because he's so methodical.
Yeah, that's it. Like the Masters of the Warp are very secluded sect of reptilians, focusing solely on bringing the humans through the warp. So they're a little bit out of touch with general conversational etiquette.
Well, Hail Draconis XYZ is where people can, I think, participate in the mint when those details go live. It looks like we got some alpha here on actually more specifics on the timing and the price point. So that'll probably go live later on this week. Question for you: beyond the comp, I mean, this thing has been sprawling, right? This has just grown beyond what you could have imagined when you signed up to be an assistant. I assume you've gotten comics out, animations, a PFP project now that actually is, letting people become, letting reptilians become vessels for humans to participate in the war and help during the power vacuum. What do you see it continuing to expand into other media or formats?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, like as I said, it's the scale depends on the support, but regardless of the support, we're always going to do more with the reptilians. So, um, I one thing that I'm very keen on doing is re-engaging the animation team, because that the just the realities of production and getting original IP bought, developed, produced is very challenging. So this animation, there's 6 scripts written for it, but I'd probably look at a bit of a start over on the actual animation and probably tie it a bit more into the storyline of the battle for Draconis. But we would get that team re-engaged if we had the means to. Comics as well, like Eric's still keen to make more reptilian craziness with us. And I still think it's a really cool way to cross over with other communities and projects. So more of this. There's other things that I would love. Like I think that if you look at the designs, Zach's designs for the reptilians, and you look at things like tabletop gaming that you've said, maybe not so much that guy with the frilly vest, but some of the warriors and the barbarians. You'll see influence from tabletop gaming in some of those weapons, like the chainsword. It's
Right, it's very Warhammer 40K.
very Warhammer. So I've always envisioned, little 3D printables of these guys would be very sick. So yeah, look, yes, I can't be specific, and everyone, if everyone talking about the future of their project will say all the same stuff, but I'll just go back to what I said at the start. Like we always want to work with the best people and the best creatives that we can, and make whatever we do of the highest quality. So
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
and I'm not alluding to this happening because who knows? Obviously, you'd have to be very successful. There's a lot of I've heard this discussed on many projects that people want toys, people want collectibles, even if it's just a subset of leaders or main characters, and it's expensive because the molds need to change and let alone the quality. But I think we've seen from what you guys have put together thus far with whatever they bankroll the reptilian overlords with. I don't know because evidently they were abandoned. Initially, that was the plan to send them here, but you guys put out quality. Like it's really high quality from the animations to the collaborations to the comics to every way that you approach the lore. Like the you talked about changing the animation kind of focus, which is when I checked it out, it was like obviously these guys are pushing lore and trying to indoctrinate the human and prepare humans and prepare them for what's to come. But what you're seeing there is like the behind the scenes, like the frustrations with one to the other. Like it's hilarious. Like the from every small detail and nuance, you guys do super high quality. So I would think if you expand, that's what could be expected. So who knows what is to come in the future? Just know if it comes, it will be dope.
Yeah, thanks heaps. That's exactly what we're aiming for.
I know we're up against time here, and I know you got other things to do in addition to preparing a recap for your reptilian overlords. But I did have some questions from the community, if you don't mind me throwing these at you kind of rapid fire before we wrap up here.
Oh yeah, sure.
Um, Someone asked, how do you balance satire and memetics with serious IP building?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think I have an answer for that because I was not prepared for such a good question. How do I balance it? Balance satire and memetics, the serious IP building.
I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe it's just naturally an interwoven thing for you that it's such a passion for what you do serving your overlords and how you approach that it just comes out that way.
Well, I think, yeah. Well, to be completely brutally honest, it is very much just living and breathing Hail Draconis and being far too online on Twitter. There's no, the boundaries are very blurred between my real life and being Crucifor's assistant. So there's, I guess that's probably reflected in perhaps the seemingly random and not so well structured and planned social strategy. It's very much on the fly in the moment. But yeah, I'm positive I'm not answering this question well at all. It's a good
You are.
question.
I think you are. And this is just my observation, right? So I don't want
Yeah.
to put words in your mouth, but
Or
from what
maybe,
you've, go ahead.
no, sorry, I was just thinking like another way I could look at this question, like I might be misunderstanding it, could be, I don't want to, there's other projects, right, that are very IP based, that are like story driven projects, which is definitely what ours is. But perhaps through social posts, they fall more into the, I guess, standard or expected or common mimetic way of posting. If that's the angle that I'm reading this question as. So it's less about every post. So all right. So every post from the Haldraconis account is in the tone of voice of the reptilian overlords. So they're always spreading their propaganda, even when they're giving real world details. For the Mint, for example, it's still coming from an alpha draconian reptilian. So that's what the question's coming from. So we always have a character, a main tone of voice across all of our communications. So rather than perhaps leaning into the current meme, that's what we stick with. I don't know if that's right. I am a feeble human.
Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good. I don't think Crucifer will be mad. I think that from the way that you answered it, the answer is clear that it's because it's a genuine passion. You're not doing it because it's something you're trying to achieve. It's genuinely you sit around and are giddy happy, perpetuating the narrative and the lore and the history of Draconis, and like it's genuine. It's not coming from a place of, hey, here's an IP, let's look at it from afar. Here's what it is. It's literally integrated into what you do in such a way because you are passionate about it. And I think the authenticity, like we say this about a lot of NFT projects and a lot of creatives, like when you're authentic, it shows, right? And I think anyone that would check out this project would see that. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I think that was a great answer. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. Sorry to whoever asked that. That was.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they're happy with it. We'll follow up with this one coming from my community, which does not surprise me. Um, are the reptiles truly placating us humans or just biding their time?
Well, look, I think you know the answer to that, but I'm a mouthpiece for the Grand Reptilian Council, so I'm going to say they've got your best interests at heart. They love humans. And
Sounds believable. And on a related note, someone in the Discord during our conversation said, "This is giving me V vibes, that show from the '80s where they peeled off their skin." And I see where they're coming from. Definitely not visually, but certainly with what we think might happen here. And I'm not talking about some weird baby.
look, we, the Grand Reptilian Council, have influenced a lot of pop culture, dating back to the 70s and 80s. So I'm not surprised that you're seeing V vibes. We actually have, I don't know if you've got the ability to bring up the comic covers again, but
Sure.
one of the covers by an artist called Mojoko World. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. His cover is very V. It's a reptilian ripping his face off. Let's see if I can find it to help. It was in the it was in How Draconis Law. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
Oh no, I can't. Because we've got the funky 3D covers. I'll link you this and see if you can open it.
Sure, sure. It's both cool and disturbing that comment from the community excited you. I thought it would be a one-off and we chuckle, and you're like, no, absolutely. Skin ripping, terrifying things are make
We'll just
sense and
have
are
to
in play.
let this load.
Sure.
So the adult fantasy, it's not what you think if you don't know that project.
I don't know to
It's
trust you guys. I honestly don't know what to think when you send me
yeah,
something. So
we're about to open some hardcore pornography. No, it's adult fantasy. Another project, another cool independent project. They released a great sort of trading card, like digital trading card collection. There's the face ripping from Majoko World. If you put your little cursor on that cover, you can spin it around and move it and stuff. So they developed this kind of generative aging, generative like wear and tear that they had on their trading cards. And so we teamed up with them for the issue 3 of the comic. They did the covers treatment for us. So essentially, every cover we had a bunch of guest artists doing the covers, so a whole bunch of alt covers. But every single cover has its own unique like aging and wear and tear, and sort of it's digital grading in a slab there. So that was just another cool little
oh
feature.
wow, that's cool. I think we've
Yeah,
talked about this in different ways, like over the years. I didn't know that there was something that was using it in this kind of card form, because there's been different projects where the more different things happen, different attributes change on the artwork. But
yeah,
I find this interesting because traditionally we think of aging and NFTs like provenance and things that are legacy having more value. But if just the aging process gives it more weathered, is more weathered a better attribute for this, or is it to be pristine?
for
Like I would
me.
almost go ahead.
No, you go. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm extrapolating, but I like I like to collect sports cards or whatever. I would almost think like the the less it trades hands, right? Maybe the less trading that happens, then it would have a more of a pristine look, and that would be desirable. But that's kind of in conflict with the creators, right? Because if you release it as a project, you want it to trade hands because it shows it's reaching more people, and
Yeah.
also royalties and all this other stuff. So interesting dichotomy. But I digress. Go
No,
ahead. You were saying something else about this
well, you've taken it to the next level. That would be very cool if it was like an ongoing aging and
dynamic.
damage.
Yeah.
That'd be sick. That'd be awesome. So these when they're not dynamic in that regard. They're
Oh, it's
like
just
at mint.
different when they're generated.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay, got it. Cool.
at mint you would get, oh, okay, I pulled this, what is it, rated 2.58
Yeah.
grading cover. But what I was gonna say is personally I prefer the aged damaged look to the covers than the pristine ones. I think it feels, that's all digital art, but it feels a bit more tactile and real.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
funny
that
you
was
say
a
that because I on my desk right here I have these books that I buy that are lately I've been collecting really old books that are very weathered. Right, it looks
yeah,
like it would be like a tome that you'd find in like a someone's study that was all dusty, or like in a magician's lab or whatever. So
yeah,
I can definitely appreciate that and love the return to tactile because as a person who geeked on that, like I used to love going into whatever the video game store and just not even having any intention, just randomly looking at the boxes and
yeah,
being able to pick stuff up. Same thing with music, right? I would get all excited on a Tuesday and then see a cover that caught my interest, and next thing you know, I'm on the bus on the way home looking at the insert to see if there's cool art or hidden images or whatever. Like I love that stuff. So very cool
definitely.
that you guys lean in on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that, that's a tangent. Like I was the same. So I'm quite old now, but growing up, like video stores, which maybe the kids don't know what they are an ancient relic from a long gone time. But like walking into the horror section and just the covers, like the that's the wild cover art. embossed covers, metallic covers. You'd pick media based on the appeal of the packaging, right? It wasn't
Right.
not like Netflix where it's generated key art and everything looks the same. I think there's
So what?
something very important in having that sort of uh, what is it? That unique kind of identity for each piece. That's really cool, and that's kind
Yeah,
of again, I guess that's what we look for in our stuff.
yeah. It's funny. I record music and I'll ask sometimes with the producers that I'm working with to add um, a more gritty kind of authentic old school sound, like if we're on a DAT
Yeah,
tape instead of digital, right? Like I'd rather hear it sound like I was on Staten Island with Wu-Tang than I was like crisp and clean in LA with Dre. It's just like a different, it's just, it adds a lot to it for the character. Although when it comes to the video store thing, what I do to try to pull myself back when I start feeling like, man, I miss physical media a lot, is I try to remember the arguments that I would have in the aisle when it was
yeah,
like there was only like so many copies and that copy was
yeah,
gone and you were literally standing walking down on your knees like trying just pick one. And so that kind of brings me back to kind of an equilibrium, but I digress
yeah,
as well. A couple more questions if you got time.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
uh you had announced that this would mint on ETH mainnet. Previously, there's this discussion about abstract. Can you give any insight on to what dissuaded you from moving forward with abstract?
Yeah, I can. I can give our reasons, and this is again, I'm all about prefacing before I put my foot in my mouth. This is no shade on Abstract or the team behind Abstract. They're doing a great job. They've got a good ecosystem there. For us, it was I think what happened while we were developing this is we went through a period of where we had the art essentially done, and it was like what's going to give us the most eyeballs on the project, like how are we going to get attention, because we're fully independent, like we don't have any backing, we don't have you know deals with any collector groups or anything. We're not paying Coles to do threads on us. It's purely word of mouth and relying on the fact that we have some of the sickest artwork in the PFP space. That's what we're going for. So through that period where we're like, oh, maybe we look at the newer chains, like the newer L2s that are popping up, because they obviously attract a lot of attention, and hopefully we were hoping that the teams would be looking to support new collections moving across to them, and that would be a boost in visibility. So really early on we were looking at base, but then we thought, nah, base doesn't feel right. It does feel a little bit not corporate, but it didn't feel like the place for bloodthirsty reptilian civil war. Then abstract came along, and we were like, yep, cool. They're green, so look straight away. We've got a bit of a branding synergy there with green skin reptilians. But it was they were doing a good job of pushing new collections, and they had the dashboard and incentivizing people to check out things. But then it sort of, for me, it became, again, like not any shade. It's just it felt like it was really pushing streaming. It felt like a streaming and gaming chain, and we're not a gaming project. So we kind of quickly felt like maybe we weren't a good fit there. And a lot of the PFP collections there, like what happens with every new chain, like the collections are very chain specific in their naming and their traits and their designs. It's like, yeah, we get it. You're on Abstract or you're on Ape Chain, but does everything have to be an ape? Does everything have to be abs? Like, does everything have
Right.
to be green? So it's kind of like it felt like this is, how Draconis has its specific branding and a specific look and tone of voice, and it didn't feel right tying that to these L2s that have their own specific tone of voice, their own specific branding, Whereas ETH is like, the legacy. It's rock solid, no frills, chain. I'm probably not expressing that as well as I would like to, but it feels more, ETH doesn't have branding. It doesn't have the team out front shilling it, and it's just a thing. It's just there, It's like space. Just ETH's there, and that's kind of what felt right for this
Yeah.
reptilian collection.
Well, thank you for that context. You're not the first project that I've seen do that, so I find it interesting. So thank you to the person that sent that to me in my DMs. I would agree. Like Abstract has projects that are successful that are gaming or gaming adjacent, right? And even some PFPs that are leaning into that a little bit, whether it's because they're pixel based or literally have abs in the name.
Yep.
So I can definitely see where you were coming from there. But also, there's been other projects that have basically announced, hey, look, uh, ETH Foundation has done a lot to re-engage even the NFT space and the broader builder space now. The culture is a little bit different there. Obviously, liquidity and right now in the market is in a different place. And they've kind of returned. They're like, we're going back home if we had ported, or we're going to what was it? Axie just announced Ronin was going to go, it was going to
Yeah.
move as well. Like there's a lot of movement to go back and say, hey, we want to be on Ethereum. So I definitely see where you were coming from there. So thank you for that behind the scenes look of that decision making process.
No,
I
no
got what
worries.
I got one more for you, and then I'll let you go. But before that, I have to ask because it kind of ties to this question, I suppose. Is this you? Is this who I'm talking to right now?
No,
Is
that's
it?
Dildor. So
What?
this Dildor right here that you're looking at is done by Gremplin, who was extremely kind back in the day to do that for us.
Okay.
Just because he's a legend. And the to for the full backstory, this was where we were toying with the idea of submitting like a rare Pepe card, and so we did Pepe Dildor. And again, like I always, want to work with the very best people I can. Very cheekily asked Gremplin if he would help us out, and he did because he's, as I say, he's a legend. And so this is now this is just one of my go-to pieces that I love to reply to people with.
Oh, okay. I only ask because I can see in this thread where you reference team and Crucifor if he wrote it and not you. So I don't know if this is you talking about yourself in third person or what, but it says my bumbling human assistant, and then it had this picture that accompanied it. That's why I was confused, but it looks like
I
you were
get
just picking someone from the team, and so Dildo was it.
you.
Um, last question. Which faction would Crucifor's assistant pledge his allegiance to, and why?
Great. I would very clearly pledge my allegiance to the occultists because Lord Crucifor is, of course, the master of prophecy, priest of the dark moon of Draconis. So I have to follow suit. I am his lackey. I am his Smithers to his Mr. Burns. So I have to be an occultist. Oh, actually,
Interesting.
this is that question lets me plug a very fun little faction picker that we have. I'm going to share that with you if you want to. Anyone wants to do just a fun little online. It's like a quiz, which will allow you to answer some random questions and determine what faction is your true calling. It won't be reflected in what happens to you once you go through the warp, but it's just a fun little precursor. So I'll try and find that for you.
So it tells you, where you would best align
Exactly. So it's
in the
asking
war.
you some questions, the answers of which will say, all right, you are a warrior, you are an assassin. Sorry,
No problem.
I found it, but I'm just I'm making sure it's the right one because as a bumbling human assistant, I often get things wrong. Here we go. All right, I'm going to pop this in our chat, and if you want to share it, you can. if anyone wants to figure out what faction they are most aligned with.
Sure. Let me pop this in here as well. Maybe I will do it. I'll pop it in our Discord and I'll throw it in the comments on our stream right now. So anyone tuning in, if they want to check it and share whether or not they are where they expect to be from a faction perspective, that will be cool. So let me, I'm gonna go to levels of inception here if I go to Twitter and do this live, but we do what we do.
Great.
So the mint, September 7th, 8th, depending where you are in the world, 7th if in the US or in this hemisphere, the 8th in the early morning if it's if you're in Australia or that area where you guys are based. Evidently, when I say you guys, clearly I'm talking about the human assistants and not the reptilian overlords, because I do not know where they are. I do not know where
Well,
they are.
I can tell you where they are.
Okay.
They're in the Reptorium, which is their underground base. It's actually beneath a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. So eagle-eyed humans in the Washington area might find clues of their whereabouts, but that's where to look. Or you could find them in Discord, either or.
And that makes sense given that their objective initially was to impact the election, right? Is that am I following that correctly? Very cool. Very cool. So mint on September 7th or 8th. You'll get some super dope art from Zach and all the contributing artists like Waxbones, Everfresh, and some surprises as well. 0.01 ETH. More to come afterwards relative to the faction war and what that means. So stay tuned to find out what that is. It looks like the mint details will go up later this week. So people, if you go to the website now, Hail Draconis XYZ, it won't have the mint specifics quite yet. That'll be coming up as we get closer to live. Did I miss anything there?
No, that's exactly right. The website will be updated shortly and go through the warp.
Definitely super dope. This has been awesome. It's pretty clear that the Battle for Draconis isn't just lore. It's definitely a genuine vehicle for what's happening out there in the galaxy on Draconis, and will impact Earth significantly. So I'd encourage people to consider enlisting if they're interested in taking part and playing a role. It's a living, breathing IP. It's got comics, animations, guest artists, now a PFP mint that's actually a vessel for you to participate in interplanetary war. So people that want to take part and enjoy it can join the community, join in the war efforts, and make your contribution known. So a huge thank you to Crucifor's assistant for joining us today. And feeble fellow humans, we've been warned.
Thank you so much for having us. And Hail Draconis.
I almost said it just out of reflex, but I got to do. I got to hit. Fine. Hail Draconis.
Thank you.